What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. Today we're going to go into a deeper dive into the ramifications of the global crowd control change that's coming in with this patch. I think people are really sleeping on this change, and it's as impactful as way back in the day when they globally changed the ultimate charge rate across the board. When they do a global change like this, there are some major winners and losers. So first, let me describe what the heck I'm even talking about. The old version of crowd control used to sometimes gift you more boop than you were warranted if the enemy was leaning into it, sort of going with the wind, so to speak, or there were some cases where you could lean against the boop coming towards you and it would send them nowhere near as far as you might expect. Essentially what the new boop system does is treat all boops as neutral, and I think the devs might argue, and many of you may as well, say, well, this should just be a neutral change, right? If they're always reliable, and if half the time you got extra boop and half the time you got less boop, well, that just evens out. No harm, no foul. However, I don't think in gameplay it actually was half. Way more of the time would you be able to counteract boops, especially on characters that want to go engage in, like Winston. And really, I don't think there's many characters that oftentimes were getting the benefit of booping someone with their momentum to send them flying farther. The only character I think typically did that was like Wrecking Ball, who would sneak up on you from rolling out of nowhere to boop you towards where you already were going, amplifying the boop range effect. Where sometimes you would see clips like on Reddit where a Wrecking Ball will come out of nowhere and just boop you 2 to 3 times as far as you expected just because you were leaning into the momentum of it. But I would say most of the time that's not the case, because you usually are looking at your enemy and counteracting the thing they're doing, meaning more times than not, characters like D.Va or Winston were resisting crowd control, where now they flat out won't. Now, although there is a lot of characters in the game that do have crowd control effects, Doomfist, Pharah, Junkrat, and more, the strongest core of this from a meta component is the meta we already know about, which is goats. Now, in my much longer video where I discussed the best and worst heroes for Season 15, I know a lot of people get the impression that the Lucio speed boost nerf is a big change to goats. I don't think so. I think it makes goats a bit more difficult to play, but doesn't change the overall premise. Instead, what's actually happening is goats in some ways might look stronger on the next patch. Can you believe it? Because a lot of the nerfs they put to it I thought were pretty irrelevant, but this crowd control change, I think, benefits Lucio and Brigitte the most, because they're the characters that fight on the objective, getting things off of it way more than anybody else. Mainly because Lucio boop and Brigitte flail are on a 4-second cooldown, and they use it all the time. It's the main component of what they do, frankly. It's one of their biggest value plays, at least in defending up against aggressors onto their team comp. In some ways, this doesn't change too much, because it wasn't like there was anything in the entire game that can contest going toe-to-toe with the Brawl anyway. You either had to play goats or play mass damage, not contesting the Brawl at all, and it was very rock, paper, scissors-esque. But I think this makes that even worse, because whereas I did dream up that maybe Baptiste could throw his Immortality field from range so that one target could contest the point up against the Brawl and not die, but with the crowd control being even better now, or more reliable I should say, those two characters to get you out of the safety of a field protecting you to contest the point are two of the biggest counters to that entire premise and playstyle. Now, there is potentially a world where this works in the opposite effect, where DPS finally do get more playtime because the defensive crowd control works better to keep the aggression of tanks away from them. So here we would look to characters like Pharah, Doomfist, Junkrat, and Ashe. If Winston or Reinhardt or D.Va are more reliably knocked away from you so that they can't close the distance to deal damage, then it's much harder for a 3-3 composition to overwhelm a singular target and focus fire them down. In theory, I like this, but I'm a bit worried that Brigitte and Lucio are more reliable at landing their boot plays when in a death ball, playing on the objective, getting you off it, getting you away from their Zenyatta, defending their Zarya when she's at low health, rather than the other way around, because the multi-DPS split comp is all over the place, which in theory should mean it's easier for you to outplay the crowd control they have. They'll be on longer cooldowns. You can block it with a Zarya bubble anyway, which you always use to initiate with your dive tanks pressing W. So overall, in my opinion, this is a net buff to the defensiveness of Goat's comp itself. And a bit worrying because otherwise characters like Wrecking Ball and Doomfist looked really good in this upcoming patch, but may just be too hard to play versus how reliable some of this CC is going to be. This is a big problem because Blizzard was trying to nerf the Goat's comp away from stage 2, but I'm not convinced that it is. And with all these unimpactful nerfs stacking up, getting us overly optimistic, the elephant in the room for me is Brigitte. And I know some people think that even if you nerf Brigitte, it won't matter because pros swap out Brig in some situations, but I think what most people forget about that is that there's a lot of comps that don't get played, a lot of heroes that don't get played, simply because Brigitte is such a strong option. Like, pros don't even consider trying to run some characters because the enemy could always just swap to Brig and waste all their time. She is the be-all, end-all nuclear bomb in the three-way rock, paper, scissors counter-picking metagame that exists right now. But so this doesn't get misconstrued, I'm a Brig player, okay? My top picked heroes are all of the lower mechanical skill, high game sense, teamwork-based heroes. The past few seasons I've been working a lot more on my individual play rather than just learning the game to cover it on YouTube. Last season getting my main account all the way up to nearly 4.4k, which I maintained until I had to go to LA for a week and I decayed, feels bad man. Mostly playing Goats with a super high win rate on Brigitte. Granted, small sample size, I don't grind on that account because the games are too hard. Instead, compared to the account where I try to play DPS sometimes, but end up having to fill because I like having real team comps, even there, nearly 2/3 win rate. So when I say all this, it's from the perspective of the type of player this character was made for. I suck at Tracer and Genji, so back when the meta was pure dive, I really couldn't contest with that area of the hero pool, and Brigitte is a godsend to a player like me who's less skilled and doesn't want to take a Tracer versus Tracer, and I probably am never going to get any good at Genji either. But Brig's like a tank, and that's right up my alley. But despite me focusing on self-improvement for the past few months to try to rank up as high as I can, it also is the case that this meta was a gift-wrapped present for players like me who don't have as much mechanical skill but want to use game sense. And despite all my best interests of how much SR I can farm and how much better I can feel about myself reaching up to ranks where I get to play with pros, I would rather be at a lower rank where the game and the meta required you to have more skill to succeed. And I know it feels at lower ranks that Brig's not as strong. I guarantee you, you have to master the hero and master Goats and get your teammates to play Lucio and the actual comp, and then you'll start to win running 3 support. It really does just run over everything, and I think a lot of people base their opinions on how strong Brig is by, frankly, playing her very badly, but also not with the actual 3 support comps or knowing the intricacies of how to utilize them. It's just a pure knowledge game right now, where if you just know what you're supposed to do and press W in the right time in the right direction, you just win the game for free. Laughing at anyone who's attempting to play Overwatch as a shooter game along the way. And that's damaging. Unhealthy, bad. Players as unskilled as me shouldn't be able to so easily get so high up in the ladder. And I'll tell you, a huge percentage of my games was my team, because I always fill into Goats, playing Goats, and the enemy had damage and lost for free. It's like clockwork. I could have penciled in the SR just from seeing the hero select screen. This is the most punishing rock, paper, scissors meta we've ever seen, and not in a good way. Not like it's hard to run attack Pharah into a Widow with an established sightline. It's not like that. It's like, you can't shoot us, we go to the objective, come try me, get wrecked, go back to spawn, I win for free. So hopefully with all that cleared up, I think Brig needs some serious looking at, and here's a number of nerfs that they should consider putting onto the PTR before this patch finalizes, if we have any hope of Goats not being the majority team comp that pros use in Overwatch League Stage 2. Take her shield health down to 250. 500 is an outrageous amount considering she heals herself and swings while her shield is regenning. So if you're any good at Brig, you don't just have 750 health, you can have 1 to 2,000 health if you manage your shield well enough in a team fight. And maybe even more than that, and it's way more when you get rally involved. Her individual sustain is just way above any character that exists in the game. Reducing the shield health would make damage actually matter up against it, and she would have to think about how she takes engagements and angles and have to use cover and the help of teammates far more often rather than being the sole wrecking crew to sustain a brawl on the objective basically forever up against multiple shots from a DPS hero on a target that normally represents a squishy health pool. Instead instead now represents one of the tankiest characters in the game. When Brig's shield has 500 health, that means it takes more than 4 rockets, 5 full rockets from Pharah to destroy it, and compare that to hitting 5 rockets on any other target in the game with that size hitbox. Everything in the game would die in comparison to the amount of shots it takes to hit Brig standing on the ground. But you can do this for any DPS character that you can think of. Even with Soldier's buffed damage, which I don't think matters at all for this meta, it requires him to land every single bullet of his clip without missing to crack it. Now you can add in the Helix rocket in there to lower that a bit, but let's remember, Soldier's rifle spreads bigger than the size of Brig's shield, so he can't even really focus it if he wanted to. It takes way too long to break Brig's shield, considering how small it is. And I think what people don't realize about this being so bad for the game is that a single character can contest the objective. And it used to be back in the day, Tracer was insane at contesting objectives. That was one of Soon's best attributes as a player, right? Being able to scurry along the cart and just stay alive for so long that Rogue used to gain tons of value on the time bank. Well, Brig works the same way with none of the skill. She just has health on a small model size so that if there is any cover at all, she can hide behind, come back out, resustain, heal herself, and just keep channeling this life, even just on her own. Not to mention the rest of the comp that goes with it. This is why this is so egregious. We thought back in the day Tracer was insane with how much she could stall the objective. Well, Brig in this entire comp does it way more, which is why you shouldn't have that much tanking on such a small character model. Another solution would be, like they do with Lucio, change the value that Brigitte heals on herself. This would have a similar effect to her not being able to play as brash. I like the shield answer myself, but this would also be another type of solution. And we haven't even mentioned probably the best one, which is turn armor pack into a skill shot. There's this myth going around that Brigitte is not a good healer, and the truth is, she isn't if your team is 2-2-2. But when your team is tanks, and they all have their own get out of jail free cards with damage denial, then she is the best healer, because she blocks damage with her shield, AoE heals chip damage, and can dump reliable armor packs into the main tank, or Zarya in a duel, or whomever, and it's incredibly reliable at all stages of the fight. If armor pack instead was a projectile she shot out, there would be interplay to how it worked. Maybe D.Va could eat it, Winston could block it off with a bubble, then there would be a way to outplay it, whereas right now, Brigitte plays in a very messy brawl, where her flails hit without much aim, and because her abilities auto-lock on, even in the mess of a fight, she very reliably always hits that shot to land armor packs, which is a bigger burst of impact than even the healing on Nade from Ana. This is my favorite solution, but it also might be hard to balance because they might have to look at other aspects of her kit. Maybe they give her something back that they took away previously, but I think the skill aspects of proccing Inspire with ranged flails is really fun, and landing armor packs in a more skillful way would be more interesting as well. Even if we just straight up remove some of the overall power of Brig's armor pack or Inspire healing, yes, it might just turn to require that Goat's comp always would need a stronger healer out of the flex support position and take out Zen and instead put Ana or Moira. And you might say, well, Goat's already does this up against multiple damage comps, but I think the point is currently they swap to more powerful healing and then counter the damage. Whereas if healing takes a bit of a hit from Brig's side and you're more reliant on that main healer, well then Goat's comp starts to break apart when you get picks on it, where right now the crazy thing is it doesn't. Even when DPS comps in the Overwatch League have multiple man advantage, as long as you keep Rein, Zarya, Brig alive late into the fight, they can always bring fights back up against insurmountable odds. Because Zarya is so insane, it takes so long to break Rein's shield, and he's good at doing damage, and Brig is like another mini Rein with all of this healing as well. Once you get to point, it doesn't matter if you lose your Lucio. At this point, I feel like we should just outright admit that Brig is going to be played as a triple healer character until they make some big 2-2-2 locked format into the future and balance it with that in mind. You shouldn't feel like you should be able to play every single support in the triple support. You should feel limited, which is how it would feel once you get Brig's healing down. And the last option, this has been mentioned countless times, but if Brigitte had a bit more of a charge up to her stun animation, even just fractions of a second would make it easier to outplay, because the problem is the GOATS comp doesn't need Brigitte to have insane damage, so nerfing the shield bash didn't do too much, as the rest of her team follows up on damage anyway. They're all shooting the same thing. So it's more so the premise of she's a hero that blocks out damage in a big death ball, that the only time it fights, it focus fires a target, stuns it, flails it, and even with her own combo only doing about 100, that's more than enough to help burst down a target. Now, judging by a response of some of you guys that have talked to us on Twitter about Brigitte being an issue, the number one thing that I see pop up is that Brigitte is not good in other comps, so it's not fair to nerf her. But I don't see us ever using this logic for any other character. It goes without saying that heroes are only good in specific comps. That's how Overwatch is. We have a large, diverse cast of heroes, and most of them aren't supposed to be applicable all the time. It just so happens that GOATS is so darn good that you can play it all the time. So any of these nerfs to Brig, yes, would cement her as only being a GOATS hero as a third support, and frankly, still usable a lot of the time on certain maps. But that's the key. We want this to be a thing that you only use on some maps at best, sort of like the Slambulance was in Overwatch League Season 1. We've seen these quad tank comps come and go, and they're kind of cute and cheesy and whatever, but they never were so strong that you couldn't play other things against them, and they felt fair. GOATS is not fair. It wins the objective with stat points alone, up against playstyles that are much more difficult to pull off, meaning that there's not really a reason to not play it. And I'm afraid with the way this patch is looking, with some things going in the benefit of GOATS, when I don't think that was their intention, but it is going to be the case with this crowd control change, that we're going to have to tone down the statistical advantage that a character like Brig has up against anything trying to jump on the objective against it. And I know because I've seen it from comments on Twitter. It's starting to creep up. You start playing Overwatch more now, with Overwatch League being on, you're going to start to notice GOATS comp in gold or in other ranks. It's nowhere near as hard to run as people made it out to be, and people are getting better at it from watching the pros. So if you think this is not affecting your games, trust me, these incredibly annoying strategies to just survive on the objective longer than you can will infect your play sooner than later. Blizzard's going to have to do things to put GOATS comp on the back foot in some situation to look weak up against something, and I think at least if multiple tank comps are viable with Moira, but not much else, we're in a pretty healthy place because Moira overall is pretty easy to outplay. And here's the truth of it, guys. No matter what they end up nerfing to Brig, there's still going to be other areas of her kit that is still going to be very strong. She is just that insane of a character. Well, guys, that's going to be everything for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.